Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Thursday, January 6th, 2022. And it's only you and I today. All right, we have no guests today. Vince Akins, he will join us coming up tomorrow for his normal Thursday spot. And we'll talk about week 18 of the NFL and some of the top trends with him coming up tomorrow at noon. So we have plenty to go over today. NBA from last night, NBA tonight, just 4 games. We'll hit on some of the top college basketball games. Also, the NFL, Week 18. Remember, we don't start until Saturday. There's no games anymore on Thursday. You have the 2 games that were flexed to Saturday. Chiefs, Broncos, also Cowboys, Eagles, and then full load of games on Sunday. So we'll get to all of that coming up in just a little bit. But before we get to the basketball for tonight, let's talk about BetMGM. They're the king of sports books. Tell you about them all the time here on the Daily Insider. New players only. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line. And if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Again, new players only, must be 21 years or older to play. And it is legal in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. All right. Taking a look at NBA last night and a mixed bag of results, just to scroll right through it before we get to tonight, in case you missed it last night. Charlotte, they run out Detroit 140 to 111. And a big fourth quarter there, 76 points between those two. But the Hornets were up comfortably in that one. Charlotte was coming off a 2-game losing streak, and Detroit was off that win at Milwaukee. So the Hornets got back on track with that 29-point win over the Pistons. They were laying 10.5, so an easy win for Charlotte. Philadelphia pulled away from Orlando in the fourth quarter, outscoring the Magic by 11. They won 116-106, laying 8.5. And that game went over the total of 212.5. Really good win for the Houston Rockets. They go into Washington and beat the Wizards 114-111. That game stayed under the very high total of 231. And the Rockets, 7.5-point dogs, winning outright. San Antonio pulls off the season sweep of Boston, 99-97 at TD Garden. Spurs beat the Celtics at home earlier this season. And last night, Jason Tatum returned after he was on the COVID list, and it showed a bit of rust. 6 of 20 from the floor, 1 of 6 from 3. He only had 19. Jaylen Brown scored 30. That was coming off the heels of the 50-point game against Orlando a few nights ago. But the Celtics, 7.5-point favorites against San Antonio, and that was a high total of 223. 60-point first quarter, 30-30. And then after that, 54 in the second, not bad, but 43 in the third, 39 in the fourth. And that one pretty much killed any hopes of an over in that game. Kyrie Irving returned for the Nets last night, first game of the season, and he scored 22 points, so not a lot of rust from Kyrie. Kevin Durant had 39, James Harden 18, and the Nets rallied from a 13-point halftime deficit to beat Indiana 129-121. The Pacers, though, covered as 8.5-point dogs. They got a late layup in the final seconds after Brooklyn had a shot clock violation. And Indiana, who was up comfortably, Brooklyn was up by 11-12 late. But the Pacers ended up getting a cheap basket, and they covered as 8.5-point dogs. How about Golden State? They got run by Dallas 99-82. And the Mavericks win outright as 4.5-point underdogs. They outscore the Warriors in the fourth quarter, 29-15. Steph Curry now questionable for tonight. We'll get to that coming up in just a second. Toronto beat Milwaukee 117-111. Giannis Antetokounmpo did not play in this game. Kind of a back-and-forth affair where Milwaukee led by 9 at the half, but then they were outscored by Toronto 24-11 in the third. And the Raptors, they've all of a sudden won a few in a row here. They've caught fire. Well, it also helps when you have your roster of players because they were out for a little bit with COVID, a lot of their guys. But second straight game, Milwaukee's offense has fallen flat in the second half. We saw that against Detroit on Monday, this time against Toronto. Minnesota holds off Oklahoma City 98-90. They don't cover as 9.5-point favorites in that one. Timberwolves were up by 20 at the end of the first quarter, 30-10, and they still don't cover. Utah, good win at Denver, 115-109. That game stays under the total of 226.5. Jazz beating the Nuggets for the second time this season. The Heat hold off the Blazers, 115-109 without Jimmy Butler. And Damian Lillard didn't play either for Portland. But Miami cashes us 2.5-point favorites. Atlanta holds off Sacramento 108-102. And the saving grace for this game, as far as the total went, a very low-scoring second quarter, 21 points apiece for those teams. Trae Young did not play in that game last night. Total got up to 234, 235, dipped down to 229 with the Trae Young news that he wasn't going to play. And the Hawks pretty much were in control of most of that game. They went the first, actually, 6 minutes of the second quarter without scoring a point. But Atlanta got the win over Sacramento, and that game stays under the total. That's the third straight meeting between those two that stayed under the total. All right, let's go to tonight's games inside of the NBA. And let's begin. I mean, only got 4. But we will start with the Celtics and the Knicks. They hook up at Madison Square Garden. Remember when they played at MSG to start the season? They had that wild double overtime game won by the Knicks, 138-134. That was back on October 20th. And Boston got some revenge on New York when they played at TD Garden a few weeks ago, 114-107, a game that the Celtics led by 15. Knicks outscored the Celtics by 17 in the third quarter, and then the Celtics pulled away in the fourth quarter. That was actually the Kemba Walker revenge game, not only on the Celtics, but on Tom Thibodeau. That was after he was out for a while. Just didn't play, not hurt. Thibodeau didn't play him, and then he ran out of bodies, so he brought Kemba in, 29 points in that game for the Knicks. And the Celtics, look, we'll see what they do here off the loss to San Antonio last night. Now they go to New York. They make the short trip there. And the Celtics so far this season on no rest, 5-2 straight up, 5-2 against the spread, 5-2 to the over. So you wonder if you're going to get another high-scoring game. First two have gone over between the Celtics and the Knicks. New York just beat Indiana 2 nights ago, 105-94 to snap a 2-game slide. Knicks have won 3 of 4 at home. Also, all 3 of those wins have stayed under the total. We know the Knicks are a low-scoring team and defensive-minded. But, yeah, really curious to see if the Knicks and Celtics go over once again. Warriors and the Pelicans in New Orleans. And obviously this line will move one way or the other, depending on the Steph Curry news. Stephen Curry, he is, I'm seeing listed as doubtful with a quadricep injury. Second of a back-to-back. I don't know how much Steve Kerr wants to push him. But right now, Golden State laying 2.5 against New Orleans. And the Warriors off that loss last night to Dallas. Again, you could throw a lot of the numbers out if Steph doesn't play. But just to give this to you, Golden State 3-2 straight up and against the spread with no rest. 3-1-1 to the over with no rest. New Orleans, they're coming off back-to-back home losses. They've lost 3 in a row overall. But look at who they've lost to during the stretch. At Milwaukee, Utah, and Phoenix. So you're losing to 2 teams that were in the NBA Finals last year and another that was the number 1 seed in the West. So that's not a good stretch there for the Pelicans, who actually before the Milwaukee loss, they had won 5 of 6. They were playing a little bit better. And coming off an over against Phoenix, that was a high-scoring first quarter, low-scoring second quarter, and then it picked up in the second half back on Tuesday night. But these teams met they met back in San Francisco in early November. Golden State won 126-85, laying 9.5. But again, everything gets thrown out if Steph Curry does not play. The Pistons and the Grizzlies, I find this very intriguing tonight because Detroit lost by 29 at Charlotte last night. They did beat Milwaukee on Monday. They're 7-29. They're back to basically full strength now after some COVID hits on their team. But Memphis, I'm very curious about Memphis. They've won 16 of 20, and they're playing great. They've won now 6 in a row. But they are off of back-to-back road wins at Brooklyn, at Cleveland. They come home tonight to host Detroit. Then they go back on the road to LA for the Clippers and Lakers on a back-to-back this weekend. So you wonder if you're catching Memphis here in a bad scheduling spot against the Detroit team that just got blown out last night, so they should be pretty motivated tonight. I know they're not very good, but they should be motivated. Where Memphis, 1-5 against the spread their last 6 as a home favorite. And now you're laying, 12.5, 13, depending on where you look. So curious to see how the Grizzlies respond because they've been playing excellent. But now laying this kind of number here, they are 2-0 against the spread and straight up as a double-digit favorite this year. They won that game by 73 points against Oklahoma City. They blew out Houston. So they haven't disappointed in those roles, but also at the same time, just this situation with coming home for a game and then going back on the road for 2 important games out west. I just really wonder how Memphis will do tonight. Clippers and the Suns out in Phoenix. They wrap up the night. Western Conference Finals rematch. And LA at 19-19. They're dinged up with injuries. Paul George is out. Phoenix back home after winning at Charlotte and New Orleans, both by double digits. In fact, looking back at this now, the last 7 wins for Phoenix, all coming by 10 or more. Actually, to be 12 or more. The lowest margin of victory during the stretch was 12 points against Oklahoma City. So Phoenix playing very well. Bit of a revenge spot for them. They lost to the Clippers earlier this season, back in mid-December, 111-95 at then Staples Center, now Crypto.com Arena. But the Clippers cashes 3.5-point dogs. Devin Booker didn't play in that game. Booker's back. The Clippers, though, they have lost 4 of 6, 7 of 10. So, again, this roster is just decimated. They fell to the Timberwolves back 2 nights ago, 122-104. And, again, I think Minnesota was motivated because they were 0-3 against LA this year. But here is your lineup, your starting lineup. Serge Ibaka actually had a good game at 17 points on 7 of 7 shooting. Terrence Mann, Marcus Morris, Eric Bledsoe, and Reggie Jackson. No Paul George. Luke Kennard, even, who's a good sharpshooter, he's in the COVID protocol. So Clippers just down a lot of guys. That's as simple as you could put it. And Phoenix laying 10.5 here against LA. And the Suns returning home from that short road trip in which they went 2-0. Phoenix at 29-8 already out of the gate. So that's a really good job by them. Let's now transition to college basketball for tonight. We'll hit on some of the top games. Ohio State and Indiana. A couple big games inside the Big Ten tonight. And the Hoosiers laying 3.5 in this one to the Buckeyes. This game in Bloomington. Ohio State comes in at 9-2, Indiana at 10-3. And so far, Ohio State 3-0 inside the Big Ten, beating Penn State, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. And they held off Nebraska in overtime, 87-79, back on Sunday. Indiana coming off a 3-point loss at Penn State, 61-58, laying 5. And before that, Indiana lost to Wisconsin in early December by 5. They did beat Nebraska, so 1-2 in the conference for Indiana. And last season, Ohio State demolished Indiana by 19 in Columbus. So the Hoosiers here laying 3.5. Where Ohio State has won 5 straight. They came back and beat Duke. Remember that in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. They have wins over Seton Hall, Wisconsin in conference. They lost to the buzzer to Florida. So interesting there that Indiana laying 3.5 against Ohio State. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, Maryland and Illinois. And the Fighting Illini, an 11.5-point favorite here. Terrapins at 8-5. Illinois at 10-3. Illinois just ran out Minnesota a few nights ago. So Illinois off of back-to-back blowouts over Minnesota and Missouri. And Illinois right now 3-0 in the Big Ten, also winning at Iowa during the stretch. Maryland just lost at Iowa 80-75, but they did cover as 9.5-point dogs on Monday. That snapped a 3-game winning streak for Danny Manning's team. Interesting to say that with Mark Turgeon not there anymore. But Maryland, another heavy underdog here against Illinois. And last season, Maryland did win at Illinois 66-63 as 10.5-point dogs. So keep your eyes, I guess, on the Terrapins. Iowa and Wisconsin, they are the last game to highlight inside of the Big Ten tonight. Badgers at 11-2, Hawkeyes at 11-3, Wisconsin laying 3.5 in this one. Iowa, told you about that win over Maryland 2 nights ago. Also losing to Illinois, losing to Purdue. So 1-2 for Iowa so far in Big Ten play. Wisconsin, they are 2-1 as well, beating Indiana, getting blown out at Ohio State, and then winning at Purdue this past Sunday, 74-69 as 13-point dogs. Now Wisconsin goes from a heavy dog situation to now laying a short amount to Iowa, who, again, got back on track. Iowa lost 3 straight to Purdue, Illinois, and Iowa State. They've won 4 in a row. And southeastern Louisiana, western Illinois is not going to get anybody excited. They held off Maryland, but now you're getting Iowa as a short underdog here. And the Hawkeyes definitely would like to somewhat keep this winning streak going. Iowa did win all 3 matchups with Wisconsin last year, including in the Big Ten tournament. So keep an eye on that Iowa at least had the number of Wisconsin. In the American at 9:30, Cincinnati and SMU. And Cincinnati, they got some splaining to do. They lost 68-60 to Tulane as 9.5-point favorites back on Saturday. And Cincinnati now, what is that? 1-6-1 against the spread in their last 8 games. And the Bearcats laying 2.5 here, trying to pick up their first AAC win. The Mustangs, they already are 2-0 inside the conference, winning at Tulsa and beating UCF. And UCF had come off the Michigan win there. But SMU, all of a sudden, they've won 8 straight since losing to Missouri and Loyola Marymount back over pre-Thanksgiving. A couple games in North Florida they lost, but SMU has not lost since November 22nd, so it's a good job by them. Also beat Dayton along the line during the stretch. So SMU, a short favorite here at Cincinnati. Wonder if the Bearcats bounce back. Last season, Cincinnati won both meetings with SMU, both as a dog. Now the Bearcats flipped to a short favorite in this role. Pac-12, late night in the Pac-12, USC and Cal. They're meeting in Berkeley. Trojans a 5.5-point favorite over the Golden Bears. USC at 12-0. And the Trojans, they are taking the court for the first time since December 18th when they beat Georgia Tech by 14. And all the COVID issues, at least out west, the Pac-12 has had a lot of postponements with these games. And USC and UCLA are supposed to play the Arizona schools. Those got wiped out. They'll play later. But Trojans, though, undefeated this season. Cal, off a really good win over Arizona State on Sunday, 74-50. They blew out the Sun Devils by 24, laying 1.5. And Cal has won 5 straight. The Golden Bears are 2-1 in the conference. They won at home against Oregon State. They lost at Utah and then beat Arizona State. So Cal off to a decent start. You know, Mark Fox's team, they're getting there. But big test tonight against USC, who again undefeated, and also for the Trojans last year, they beat Cal in their only meeting 76-68. That game was in Berkeley. Cal covers 8.5-point dogs. Now Cal's only getting 5.5 in this one. And you have also some Conference USA action, Big West action, among some of the other games tonight inside of college basketball. Also wanted to mention this too, before we get to the NFL. Several bad beats in college hoops last night. Number one was Texas Tech. Well, actually, Iowa State. Texas Tech hit a 3-pointer at the buzzer to cover, meaningless 3. So Iowa State didn't cover, but they won that game. Syracuse led Miami by 18. Miami came all the way back, took the lead. They were covering, but Syracuse hit a 3 at the end to lose by 1 after trailing by 4. And Miami was laying, I think, 2.5, 3 in that one. And a couple other ones I know because I had these personally. Tulane, let me say bad beat. It was just these were kind of unfortunate beats. Tulane they were down that whole game to East Carolina. Tulane started 2-0 in the American, came all the way back, took the lead up 3 in the final seconds. East Carolina tied it, went to overtime, and then Tulane led by 1 with about a minute and a half to go. East Carolina scored the final 9 points of overtime to win by 8. So that one kind of was a burn. And Missouri State was up big on Bradley in the Missouri Valley Conference. Bradley came all the way back, led by 1. Missouri State was laying 1 on the road, and Missouri State hit a 3 at the buzzer, and they beat Bradley by 2. So things happen. DraftKings, I want to tell you about them, the GOAT. Are you the GOAT? Can you wear that crown proudly like the GOAT? He wears it as proudly as he can. That's all he knows, really. He just knows about being the best. Simple as that. DraftKings Championship Series. Score your seat to the Tournament of Champions. The DraftKings Championship Series is the ultimate competition of contest winners from daily fantasy sports, sportsbook, and casino, the one and only place you can compete in the king of competitions. The best of the best in each domain will compete for series supremacy in their own domain's Tournament of Champions. They'll have one goal in mind: win the ultimate crown and earn the title of the greatest of all time, the GOAT. That's right. You can wear that crown just like him. And you can check out all the details at DraftKings.com today. All right. A couple NFL notes to look at before we head out today. And again, Vince Akins will join us tomorrow here on the Daily Insider. The Bengals and the Browns in Cleveland coming up Sunday. And in case you missed the news, Joe Burrow is not playing for the Bengals. Joe Mixon is in the COVID protocol. Baker Mayfield's not playing for the Browns, which actually I think could be a good thing for Cleveland, considering he's been just horrible and he's hurt. So that's a bad combination there, that you can't throw the ball, even though it was his left shoulder that's hurt. You can't throw the ball and you're ineffective. But the Browns, though, the one thing I'll give them is, even though they're out of playoff contention, they did handle the Bengals last time they played them 41-16 in Cincinnati. And the Bengals are a much better road team than they are a home team. While they finished 5-4 at home, they're 5-2 on the road. And the Bengals can still play for seeding here, but they won the North, so they're okay no matter what happens. Cleveland, they'll be under 500. Even if they win this game, they're 7-9. And again, all this is weird because we're not used to these 17th game situations. But Cleveland, 3 straight losses down the stretch. I'm sure they don't want to finish with a loss to end the season, but we'll see how Cincinnati responds without Joe Burrow. See if Jamar Chase plays even too, if you even want to take that chance. The other AFC North matchup, the Steelers and the Ravens from Baltimore. Steelers at 8-7-1, Ravens at 8-8. And who knows if Lamar Jackson's playing for Baltimore. Just a tough finish for them. Baltimore was 8-3, and they've dropped 5 in a row. They were a team that could have got the 1 seed in the AFC, but they've actually been a good underdog down the stretch. They haven't been a favorite since they last faced Pittsburgh in early December. That 2019 loss when John Harbaugh went for the 2 at the end to win it, and they didn't get it. I mean, last time Baltimore was a home favorite because they were home dogs last 2 against the Rams and the Packers. Last time they were home favorite was Thanksgiving weekend against Cleveland. That clunker with all those interceptions, that 16-10 win by the Ravens over the Browns. But Pittsburgh still with the shot to get in, coming off that 26-14 victory over Cleveland Monday night. The only issue, though, with the Steelers is, even though they've dropped off as an underdog. They were better as an underdog than they dropped off, but Pittsburgh hasn't won back-to-back games since early November. Off a win, they're 0-2-1. Their last 3 off a win. I know it's a small sample size. But Baltimore, though, they will look to beat Pittsburgh and try to end pretty much Ben's career in that spot. Now, taking a look at some of the other action on Sunday. This one really intrigues me. Excuse me. This Arizona-Seattle game. Now, last time they played in Seattle, Kyler Murray didn't play. DeAndre Hopkins didn't play, and Hopkins been out for a while. But Colt McCoy came in and led Arizona past Seattle 23-13 as 4.5-point underdogs, winning in Seattle. So the Seahawks have some revenge here. They played well last week, 51-29 win over Detroit. And the Seahawks with the win here, they'll finish 7-10. It's still not a good season. But I'm just not convinced at all, no matter who you are in the NFL, whether you're Jacksonville, whether you're the Jets, whether you're a team like the Dolphins just got eliminated this past week. I just can't believe that no one is motivated. The only team that would not be motivated per se is Green Bay because they've locked up the NFC number 1 seed. You have nothing to play for. And teams that are eliminated, I still think want to finish with a win. Green Bay can lose at Detroit and be like, okay, fine, we move on to the bye week and then the divisional round of the playoffs. I just don't believe that a lot of these teams are quitting just on principle. And also, since Seattle lost to Arizona last time they played them, Arizona's off this big win at Dallas. But remember, Arizona's dropped 4 straight home games. They lost to Green Bay, Carolina, the Rams, and Indianapolis. So Arizona doesn't have much of a home field advantage right now. Just putting that one out there. The Cardinals need to win, plus a Rams loss to San Francisco on Sunday to get the NFC West. Now, the Rams, they're 12-4. San Francisco, 9-7. If the Niners win, they're in. Niners also can get in with the Saints' loss to the Falcons. But San Francisco, though, it's questionable if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play. Trey Lance helped lead San Francisco past Houston last week, 23-7. And the one thing I'll give the 49ers, they stepped up after that terrible start. They really did. They came back and got themselves in this position. Now, the 49ers, though, 2 of the last 3 on the road, lost at Seattle, lost at Tennessee, beat Cincinnati in overtime. That was a game they were up pretty much the whole time before the Bengals forced overtime. But the Rams, now they're starting to hit their stride a bit. Beating Minnesota, beating Baltimore on the road. They've won 5 straight. That 3-game losing streak, that was the perfect time to lose those games. In late November, doesn't matter now. I know they don't have the home field advantage throughout. But the Rams have won 5 straight. And also, revenge spot for the Rams here. They got blown out by San Francisco 31-10 back on a Monday night in mid-November. San Francisco's actually won 5 straight against LA. So just keep that in mind with the 49ers and the Rams as they meet up coming up on Sunday afternoon out at SoFi Stadium. BetMGM, they're the king of sportsbooks. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. New players only. That's right. This is only for new players only. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line. And if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Again, must be 21 years or older and eligible in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sportsbooks. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for tuning in to today's edition of the Daily Insider to get you ready for tonight's action. And Vince Akins will join us tomorrow to go over the top trends for the NFL, and we'll see what he even has for Georgia, Alabama in the national championship on Monday night. Again, I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching, and as always, best of luck with your bets.